Let's talk about some of the results, because obviously the big storyline that has to dominate what happened right now in the LEC isn't even G2 going to the final. It's that Vitality didn't even make playoffs. Like, even though on paper, remember, they were supposed to make it semi-easily out of their group, because there was the group that had SK, Koi, they missed G2 and Mad, which were the other top teams. And not only did they manage to lose to Koi and Koi won the group, but they got beaten by the SK Gaming that, funnily enough, the narratives all were, this is the problem with the format, isn't it? In the round robin, you can get those BO1 wins, you can look good, blah, blah, blah. But, bet series are a different thing. It's like the Vitality narrative has collapsed in on itself. Like, we can do the SK side, but it's more the Vitality angle to me. Like, this was the team before this phase that was considered like number one. They probably had like MVP candidates like Bo Perks, like the Photon guys, unbelievable. Like, even the bot side thing, people weren't commenting that much in the BO1s because they won most games. It feels like the entire narrative now is just that the bot side didn't work. Bot is incredibly impactful right now in League of Legends. And then on top of that, once they got into these series, they didn't just lose. Some of these games are like a little bit embarrassing the way they lose, mate.
I mean, I think there's a lot to say about what's going on within this team. It is shocking because they ended the group stage in first place. Obviously, most people expected them to be really strong. It is definitely more of a bot focused meta in the world as a whole, and we've seen that play out basically everywhere, where playing through bot lane is almost always the correct choice for most teams right now. There are other teams, some LPL teams have been able to get away with shifting that up a little bit, like and still be successful, but it has been, I think, against a bit weaker opponents at times. So like IG, for example, in the LPL has been playing a lot through top lane and having a weaker bot lane, or having their bot lane play weak side and also not be super good at the game of League of Legends. But they managed to cobble together quite a few wins, but they also had a bunch of really kind of crappy opponents to start the LPL season, and they have come back down to earth just a little bit as they've had to, face teams like Top Esports and JDG in the last week. I think it's really difficult. I don't know what is going on within this roster. Like, there's no reason why this bot lane should be this bad. Neon was very good last summer. He didn't have a ton of pressure because obviously he was on a team with VTO, which most people recognized was the kind of primary carry and the main threat of that team. But he's also coming to this Vitality team with Carter, his coach from Misfits, who was very good at identifying team strengths and playing through specific players. And it's just the fundamental nature of these mistakes is just so puzzling. How they go into lane and lose at level 1 or lose within the first few minutes of the game. They
fight so much early. It's crazy for a bot lane that's been so criticized. They always make the action that gets themselves killed early. It's mad.
Yeah,
I've never seen a team this active. Like, it's like they remind me of the old fucking like Jackie Love IG bot lane, where it was like they were just going forward no matter what. Like, the jungle can be the other side of the map. You could be having a fight on top side. You're just going in no matter what. Like, what?
I think though that the meta is a lot of skirmishing before the minion wave even hits these days. We've never really seen a meta like this in League of Legends, and it's because of T1. I mean, T1 basically did this, and it's Keria, who is playing these, he's playing Hail of Blades barrier 80 carries, and he's just all-inning you on the first minion wave and, fighting for HP dominance, basically, so that they can continue the pressure and then potentially have the option to dive you, get some early plates, control the Drake. So you get like a 6-minute Drake, and then you can threaten Soul at a little over 20 minutes into the game. There's a lot of really great things you can do, and this is the core of the meta. And you do, in many ways, have to scrap it out early on or you lose. The thing is that normally people don't actually die. They just do an unfavorable HP trade and then kind of get pushed in. I think Kaiser, who has traditionally been an engaged support, that's been his role. Maybe there's a different world where if LEC is on patch 13.3 and a lot of these melee supports are buffed, that Vitality looks a lot better in these playoffs. This is one of the problems with not being on the most recent patch. And Riot has straight up said that the ratio before 13.3 was released in LCK and LCS, and also I think it's been changing in other regions as more supports and AD carries get banned out. But they were saying like it's a 20-to-1 ratio of enchanters to kind of melee supports within the professional ecosystem, which is obviously super bad. And it's even in solo queue, it's like 2-to-1 enchanters to melee supports. So they've got to do some things to buff this or to nerf what's going on with those AD carries. And they are working towards that, but it could just be an unfortunate patch situation. I think if I'm Vitality, I'm looking at what Riot is saying and the changes they're making. Now, the changes on 13.3 may not go far enough, but because Riot has stated that it is a focus of theirs to get these melee supports and engage supports back into professional play, I think we could assume that on a long enough timeline, they will be successful in doing that.
Do you think part of why they want that, by the way, is that they don't like the fucking ADC support meta that they're doing in Korea now? What do you think?
I mean, they fucking hate that.
They have to, surely.
Like,
spoiler, we'll get to them later,
in their heart of hearts.
Like, I'm sure, that. Obviously, we don't see it bleed that over, but anyone who saw Koi this weekend knows, stuff like that, Callista, if that ever becomes the actual legit player, more people play those like the Caitlyn support, it is unbelievable what you can do with him. But it warps the whole game, obviously. It's not League of Legends as we know it.
I am personally enjoying it because we've never seen this before, and it is also extremely entertaining. It's not boring bullshit. It's
and you find out which one of the supports.
To watch Korea play this stuff.
What you find out is which support is just a support, or which is like a carrier or a Trimby, where they have extra depth to what they can do, and they can actually unlock a whole different side of the game. You see how OP those guys are when this shit's in the meta.
Yeah, and it makes for very entertaining games. I think especially the mid games around some of this, we've seen the kind of sniper team compositions that T1 has put out. They have no fear in running Nidalee, Gumayushi on Varus, and then having a Caitlyn support, and then just everybody just shooting spears and Caitlyn Qs and piercing arrows at one target and 100 to zeroing the enemy support. It's fun. It is.
The joke is when you consider the long history of T1 loving all those pork and fucking pig comps. It's this is actually the dream wheelhouse for them, mix. As you say,
so funny.
You can just the joke is it's you've got 3 people just executing a fucking character, and if you get caught once, you just actually are stuck with the CC, just getting shot by everyone. It's fucking hilarious, isn't it?
It's great. I mean, it is really entertaining. But I don't think Riot likes it. They said at one point in time, remember the mage bot lane meta where they said, "Oh, this should be more flexible." Yep. Well, you'll see, guys, they really rolled back. It's weird how they said, "Oh yeah, we like this. This should be good," and then they just completely stopped that from happening. Now, obviously, we are going to see the occasional Ziggs or Cassiopeia or niche strats, which is fine. I think these are interesting methods to play the game that show that players have an additional depth to their champion pools. But we shouldn't be taking a skill set that players have been, professional players like Deft have been refining for a decade, and then telling them they have to be different players. Riot's only allowed to do that to junglers. They're only allowed to, and to a lesser degree supports, but mostly junglers. Because that's the pact that Riot has made with the player base, is that junglers must change, junglers must adapt, because we will fuck with the jungle every single season, basically. But everybody else, you kind of know what you're getting in your particular roles, or you can have a specialty like playing, weak side or tank top laners versus more carry top laners. You can get by being a professional player with either both skill sets or just one of them, right? So I think that they probably really don't like this, because the thing is they don't want the support role to be a highly mechanical role. I don't think they want that. I think there are players who want to roam the map, who want to provide utility for the team, and who want to play a game without necessarily having the best mechanics. And that's okay. That's okay. I think it's good because it allows different kinds of people to play the game in different ways. And I think positional play is one of the best, it's probably the single best thing that ever happened to meta development in League of Legends, because it allows us to talk about the game, to characterize players, to have these roles that are hard and set just like most traditional sports within the game. And that makes the game much easier to comprehend, makes it much easier to analyze, makes it much easier to engage with, both on the professional side and the casual side. It is incredibly important. And so I think Riot does not want every role to be highly mechanical, and I don't think they want every role to be high damage. And the fact is that if you are good at Hail of Blades 80 carry supports right now, it's just the best. I don't know how to say it. That's just how it is. What are the advantages? You can flex them between different roles. You can flex them between 80 carry and support. So now you don't even know what their draft is going to be, particularly on red side. It makes it very confusing to draft against people. You have other champions that are coming up in the meta, like Annie, that can also be flexed. So if you're red side, it gives you huge advantages heading into the 5th pick. And you can bully people out of lane. You can create that map pressure. You can get objective leads. And that's just winning a game of League of Legends right there.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.